The first theory I will discuss is the dividend irrelevancy theory. It was advanced by Merton Miller and Franco Morgellani. So again, as we studied in capital structure, we have a theory that is given by The theory states that a firm's dividend policy has no effect on either its value or cost of capital. So basically, the theory says that whatever the payout ratio, whatever dividend you are paying, it will have no impact on the stock price. So you can keep whatever dividend policy you have, it will make no effect. They prove that a firm's value is determined only by its basic earning power and its business risk. So basically, the argument that they gave is that for a shareholder, it is important that you give them their required rate of return. So, as long as you are giving them their required rate of return, it does not matter whether the required rate of return is coming in the form of dividend or whether it is coming in the form of capital gain. Okay, so let's assume कि investor का required rate of return. Okay, so for this I'm going to use this formula. Okay, right, it's fine. So the required, basically this is the expected rate of return formula, but in equilibrium the expected and the required rate can be are equal. So for the rate of return, the formula is dividend yield So the return for a shareholder can come either in the form of dividend, which is a cash distribution by the corporation, or it can come in the form of capital gain, which is the stock price appreciation in the market. Now let's say assume that the required rate of return for the investor is 10%. अब ये 10% उनको डिविडेंड के फॉर्म में बेशक आ रहा हो और स्टॉक की प्राइस में कोई इंक्रीज नहीं आ रहा हो. So the capital gains is 0. You are meeting their criteria for required rate of return. So the investors will be satisfied and your stock price will not increase. But now over here, similarly, okay, sorry about this. I'm going to erase this. I don't need to write the formula again. Erase by line. So yeah, erase. Okay, so in the same way, the requirement is still 10%, but now instead of giving the dividend yield, you're reinvesting the whole amount back and giving the return in the form of capital gain. Still, the investor is getting a 10% return, so the investor will still be satisfied. So this is basically what is saying, that your investor will be indifferent on whether the return is coming in the form of dividend or capital gain, as long as you are giving them their required rate of return. So जब तक आपकी इनकम बिजनेस की अच्छी है, इट इज़ फाइन. वो इनकम अब आप जैसे मर्जी चाहे डिस्ट्रीब्यूट करो, कैश के फॉर्म में उनको दे दो, डिविडेंड के फॉर्म में, या फिर आप दोबारा बिजनेस में री इन्वेस्ट कर दो, जिससे बिजनेस में ग्रोथ होगी और स्टॉक की प्राइस इंक्रीज होगी. So they are happy even if they are getting the return because stock price ऊपर जा रही है, and they are happy even if the return is coming in the form of cash, as long as they are getting their return. I'm going to discard this. Now moving ahead, but assumed among other things that there will be no taxes and there will be no transaction cost and everyone has the same information. These assumptions are very unrealistic if you think about it in the market. Usually in the market there are taxes and there are transaction costs, and everybody doesn't have the same information. So assumptions are kept in order to create a theory to make things simple. Now, also argued that each shareholder can construct his or her own dividend policy. So now we will try to understand how is this possible. So I'm going to create a note once again. Okay, why is this not working? Okay, so create note. Okay, so again, this theory says that the shareholder can actually create their own dividend policy. What this means is that again the return comes in two forms, right? Dividend or capital gain. But investors do have preference. Some investors like dividends and some investors actually like capital gains more. They would prefer that the stock price go up. Whereas some investors would want that the cash comes to them instead of the capital gain. So if the company gets, if the investor, let's do it from the investor's perspective. So if the investor wants a dividend, but the company is more interested in giving the return in the form of capital gain. सो इन्वेस्टर को क्या चाहिए? इन्वेस्टर को डिविडेंड चाहिए, लेकिन कंपनी डिविडेंड पे नहीं कर रही. इंस्टेड ऑफ पेइंग आउट डिविडेंड दे आर री इन्वेस्टिंग बैक द अमाउंट. वो रिटेन्ड अर्निंग्स में री इन्वेस्ट कर रहे हैं. सो व्हाट विल हैपन वन से री इन्वेस्टिंग, कंपनी में ग्रोथ होगी, एक्सपेंशन होगी. They expect the growth rate to increase and the price of the stock to increase. So they are going to give you the return in the form of capital gain instead of dividend. So अगर इन्वेस्टर को डिविडेंड नहीं चाहिए और लेकिन उसकी स्टॉक प्राइस ऊपर जा रही है, बिकॉज आपको रिटर्न तो मिल रहा है लेकिन इन द फॉर्म ऑफ कैपिटल गेन, विच मीन्स कि स्टॉक की प्राइस ऊपर जा रही है, बट आपको तो डिविडेंड चाहिए, यानी कि आपको तो कैश चाहिए. सो व्हाट यू कैन डू, यू कैन सिंपली सेल योर शेयर्स. सेल योर शेयर्स. स्टॉक की प्राइस तो वैसे ही ऊपर जा रही थी और आपको कैश के फॉर्म में रिटर्न चाहिए. कन्वर्ट इट इनटू कैश योरसेल्फ. बेसिकली दैट इज व्हाट ही इज सेइंग ओवर हियर. सिमिलरली इफ द इन्वेस्टर वांट्स the return in the form of capital gain, but instead of getting the return in the form of capital gain, the company is paying out dividends. So investor को capital gain चाहिए था, but instead of giving them capital gain, the company is giving them return. वो cash के form में दे रही है. So ठीक है, अगर the investor does not want the dividend, if the investor does not want the capital gain, I mixed this up a bit. Basically the investor wants capital gain and the company is not giving them the capital gain. Instead of that, they are giving them dividends. So what the investor can do, they will have the dividends with them. So the investors can use those dividends to purchase more shares. राइट. इन्वेस्टर को चाहिए था कैपिटल गेन, लेकिन कॉरपोरेशन ने उनको डिविडेंड दे दिया. सो इफ़ दैट इज़ द केस, डिविडेंड नहीं चाहिए आपको, कैश के फॉर्म में रिटर्न नहीं चाहिए, सो द इन्वेस्टर हैज़ द कैश इन द रिटर्न इन द फॉर्म ऑफ डिविडेंड, सो दे कैन परचेज मोर शेयर्स यूजिंग दैट कैश. Okay, so basically that's why the dividend is irrelevant, because the dividend policy they can create on their own. However, the weakness of the MM theory is that over here there are no taxes and there are no transaction costs. So this is what MM assumed over here. Creating your own dividend policy, in order to create your own dividend policy, the investor will have to bear taxes, and the investor, more importantly, will have to bear the transaction cost. So if the investor is selling the shares or if he is purchasing the shares, then he will have to bear the transaction cost. So the investor will not be happy that if he has to bear this cost. Okay, so I hope the dividend irrelevancy theory is clear to everyone. Now, moving ahead, okay, so I'm going to make another video for this. So,